Hello and welcome back for another Torah Tuesday. I am so excited to share with you some of the things I got to see with my own eyes on a recent trip to Israel. So rather than continue on in our study of Exodus, we're going to take a few weeks to unpack some of what I saw that was absolutely mind-blowing and will help us understand the biblical text even better. So today we're looking at Genesis 14 verses 18 through 20, which is right in the middle of a very obscure chapter in which Abraham, this is right after Abraham and Lot have separated, and Lot has chosen to live in the valley where Sodom and Gomorrah are. And after they part, a coalition of kings fights against the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah, and they win, and Lot and his family are taken as plunder or taken captive as a result of that battle. So when Abraham hears this, he sets out with his household in order to fight these kings and get Lot back. We're told that he has 318 trained men in his household, which gives us a little bit of a glimpse of the wealth of Abraham and the power that he held. They win the battle, and on his way home, we have this really interesting encounter with someone named Melchizedek. So I'm just going to read from the NIV a few verses where they encounter one another. Then Melchizedek, king of Salem, brought out bread and wine. He was priest of God Most High. And he blessed Abram, saying, Blessed be Abram by God Most High, creator of heaven and earth, and praise be to God Most High, who delivered your enemies into your hand. Then Abram gave him 1/10 of everything. Now this little encounter is bracketed on either side by an encounter with the king of Sodom, who comes out to meet him after the battle, and they negotiate who gets what. But it's very striking that Abraham meets this man named Melchizedek. We're told several things about him. First of all, his name, Melchizedek, in Hebrew means my king is righteous, or my king is tzedek. We're told that he is not only a king, but he's king of Salem, but he's a priest of God Most High. In Hebrew, this name of God is El Elyon, or title of God, God Most High. So he's a priest king, and he's at Salem, which you might notice is a shortened version of Jerusalem. Many scholars believe that Salem here is a short form of Jerusalem, and we can see this in Psalm 76, verse 2, where Salem is put side by side with Zion, which is another name, a theologically significant name for Jerusalem. Psalm 110 also associates Melchizedek with Jerusalem and his priestly status. So for all these reasons, we can take it that Melchizedek was king of the city or town that was a precursor of what later would be Jerusalem. Of course, the Israelites don't live here until the time of David. David conquers it. At that time, it's called Jebus, and he sets up his kingdom there. I'm going to show you a map so that you can see the city of David and how it relates to modern-day Jerusalem and the old city walls and the Temple Mount. You can see that the city of David is kind of a thumb-shaped protrusion from coming to the south end of the Temple Mount that was later built in the time of Solomon. So the way the scriptures portray the locations, the Temple Mount is eventually built on the very spot that Abraham came to sacrifice Isaac on Mount Moriah. And in fact, inside the Dome of the Rock that's in the center of the Temple Mount today, this Muslim shrine, there's still exposed, the tip of that mountain is still exposed. But other than that, it's been flattened. So the tip of that mountain has been seen as a significant place spiritually. And that's why the Dome of the Rock is built there and the temple before that. Now, I have been here before. I've been to the city of David before, and so I did not expect to see anything new this time, but I was in for a big surprise because our tour guide for seeing the city of David was none other than Shukron, who has been the main excavator of the city of David for the past 17 years. He's been an archaeologist for 25 years. He's been digging all the things, if anything you've heard about associated with the city of David, Hezekiah's tunnel, Warren's shaft, all of the waterworks that connect them, the pool of Salem, the Pilgrim Road. He's discovered all these things. And he took us to a place that absolutely blew my mind, that's not open to the public yet. I will put a link in the description below to an article where he describes this spot. But he and his colleague, Ronny Reich, who we also got to meet on our trip, uncovered an ancient temple that's not Canaanite. It seems clearly to be a monotheistic temple, and it's set up differently than Canaanite temples. And it dates to the time of Abraham and Melchizedek. So if Melchizedek is king of Salem, which becomes Jerusalem, and if he's priest king, then this seems like where he must have been priest. And so we got to stand in those spaces and we got to take pictures of them. So I'm going to share these pictures with you and describe what you're seeing. So it's a series of several rooms all facing east. And it's very simple. There's no evidence of ornate gold or jewels or tiles. It's just a very simple rock-hewn temple. In fact, it's cut right into bedrock. And so there was no trouble cleaning and excavating down to bedrock. And the other really remarkable thing about it is that it shows evidence of being used in the time of Abraham. But the latest, so it was used from Abraham continuously. So that's about 18th century BC, continuously up to the 8th century BC, which is the time of King Hezekiah. But at that time, it was very carefully walled off. It wasn't destroyed, it was just very carefully enclosed so that nobody could have access to it anymore. And this seems to indicate that Hezekiah honored this place, but that he was trying to consolidate the worship of Yahweh to only one place in the temple on top of the mountain, not far away. But that he recognized this as a place where Yahweh, the God of Israel, had been worshipped. So during the time of David, this is likely the place where the Ark of the Covenant was kept and where worship to Yahweh happened. Okay, so now to describe the rooms. First of all, there's a little room with a small olive press. It's just large enough to make sacred oil for use in temple rituals. And then in the next room over there, and behind the olive press, there's a storage closet where they could keep special implements for use in the temple. Next to that is a room with an altar. There's a platform for an altar, and then there's a trench cut into the bedrock that's probably supposed to be where the blood drains from the animals that are sacrificed. And then if you skip over two rooms, the room on the far left is a room with some strange arrow shapes or triangle shapes cut into the bedrock. And the archaeologists believe that these were for setting up tripods to hang the animals that were being slaughtered so that the blood could drain. And behind that area of slaughter was what's called a geniza, a special storage closet that's used for the internment of ritually sacred objects. So if you have a sacred bowl for use in the temple and it breaks, you don't just throw that pottery out in the city dump. You want to keep it in a place that recognizes its sacredness. So they found in this carefully walled off storage closet all kinds of pottery dating back to as far as the time of Abraham. And then in the very center is another room which has in it a standing stone, a special stone that's been set up. And probably we can understand what this stone is doing by reading Genesis 28, verses 16 through 18, where Jacob falls asleep and has a dream and recognizes, I'm in a holy place, this is the house of God, and he sets up a stone and pours oil on it. The archaeologists of this site believe that this is that kind of stone, carefully set up and used as a place of pouring out sacred oil in honor of the one true God, El Elyon, or later known as Yahweh. So I found this absolutely mind-blowing. I had no idea that we had any kind of evidence of a temple in the city of David that predates the time of David, going all the way back to Abraham. It seems really likely to me that Eli Shukron and Ronny Reich are correct, that this is the place where Melchizedek would have presided as king and priest. I just think this is a fascinating time to be a biblical scholar, because discoveries are being made so rapidly, and they're shaping the way that we see the stories in the biblical text, and they're giving outside corroboration to stories that we've read about for centuries in the scriptures. Archaeology can't prove the Bible. It can't prove that things happened as they did. We don't have some kind of inscription on the walls of the tabernacle or of this temple saying Abraham was here and he met with Melchizedek. It's not that kind of proof, but it does fit really nicely with the stories that were told in Genesis chapter 14. So I hope this has been fun. I hope you've enjoyed my pictures, and I would strongly encourage you, if this sparks your interest, to schedule a tour to Israel. It is amazing to see the land of the Bible for yourself. Until next week, have a great week.